My wife left me 3 years ago for another man and had his baby. Or so I thought. Last week I saw her at a farmer's market with a toddler who had my eyes. When I confronted her, she whispered, "He might be yours, Les." Now her boyfriend is fleeing the country with my son. My name is Lester Carmichael, but everyone calls me Les. I'm 40 years old, and I've been hauling freight across this great country for the better part of 2 decades. Used to own my own rig, a beautiful 2018 Peterbilt 379 with a custom paint job that looked like rolling thunder. That truck was my pride and joy, my office, and my sanctuary all rolled into one. Keywords being used to. 3 years ago, my world fell apart faster than a cheap trailer tire on hot asphalt. My wife, Nadine, the woman I'd loved since we were teenagers back in Tulsa, packed up and left me for another man. Not just any man, mind you, but some slick-talking city boy named Sheldon Fairmont who wore fancy suits and drove a BMW. The kind of guy who probably never changed his own oil, let alone hauled 20 tons of cargo through a Wyoming blizzard. But here's the kicker that still keeps me up at night. She was already carrying his baby when she walked out that door. Didn't have the decency to tell me face to face, either. Just left a note on the kitchen table next to my coffee mug, explaining how she'd found someone who could give her the life she deserved. As if 15 years of marriage and busting my tail to provide for her wasn't enough. The divorce hit me harder than a head-on collision. Legal fees, alimony, splitting assets. It all added up faster than miles on an odometer. Had to sell my beloved Peterbilt just to keep my head above water. Now I'm driving company trucks, taking whatever hauls I can get, and living in a one-bedroom apartment that's smaller than my old truck sleeper cab. Some nights, when I'm parked at a truck stop somewhere between nowhere and everywhere, I wonder what I could have done different. Maybe I should have taken that local job she kept pushing me toward. Maybe I should have been home more often. But then I remember how she looked at me those last few months, like I was just another piece of furniture she'd grown tired of seeing. The worst part, she took everything. The house, the savings, half my retirement. Even got custody of our dog, a loyal old hound named Buster who used to ride shotgun with me on shorter runs. Now I've got nothing but the clothes on my back, a beat-up pickup truck that's older than some of the roads I travel, and enough debt to choke a diesel engine. But I'm still standing, still fighting, because that's what real men do. We take our licks and keep moving forward, even when the road ahead looks darker than a moonless night in Montana. I wasn't supposed to be at the farmer's market that Saturday morning. Hell, I don't even like farmer's markets. Too many fancy folks paying $5 for tomatoes that taste the same as the ones at Walmart. But my neighbor Mrs. Henderson had asked me to pick up some fresh corn for her since her arthritis was acting up, and I figured it was the least I could do for the old lady who brings me casseroles when I'm between hauls. The market was buzzing with weekend crowds, families pushing strollers and couples holding hands like they didn't have a care in the world. I was weaving through the chaos, baseball cap pulled low, when I spotted the organic vegetable stand Mrs. Henderson had mentioned. That's when I saw her. Nadine was standing by a display of heirloom tomatoes, looking like she'd stepped out of some lifestyle magazine. Designer jeans, expensive handbag, hair done up in one of those perfect styles that probably cost more than I make in a week. But it was the stroller beside her that made my blood freeze. The kid couldn't have been more than 2 years old, sitting there munching on some fancy organic crackers. Dark hair, button nose. And when he looked up at me for just a second, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. Those were my eyes staring back at me. Les. Nadine's voice cut through the market noise like a diesel horn. She'd gone pale as fresh milk, her hand gripping the stroller handle, so tight her knuckles were white. I stood there like a deer in headlights, holding a bag of corn and wondering how the hell this was happening. 3 years. 3 years since she'd walked out of my life. And here she was, looking nervous as a cat in a dog kennel. Nadine. I managed to get out, my voice rougher than I intended. The boy, Daryl, I'd later learn, looked between us with curious eyes, probably wondering why the grown-ups had stopped talking. He had Nadine's smile, but something about his jaw, the way he tilted his head, reminded me of looking in the mirror. "What are you doing here?" she asked, like I didn't have every right to be shopping in my own town. "Buying corn," I said, holding up the bag like evidence. Didn't realize I needed permission. She flinched at that, and I immediately felt like a jerk. But seeing her here, with him, with what looked like the perfect little family I'd thought we were building together, it brought back every raw emotion I'd spent 3 years trying to bury. "This is Daryl," she said quietly, her hand moving to rest on the boy's head. "My son. Not our son. Her son." Like I was just some stranger who'd wandered into their perfect Saturday morning. The kid waved at me with a chubby little hand, and I felt something break inside my chest. He was beautiful, innocent, completely unaware of the bomb that had just gone off in my world. "He's got your," she started to say, then stopped herself. "My what?" I asked, stepping closer despite every instinct telling me to run. But before she could answer, a man appeared beside her like he'd materialized out of thin air. Tall, lean, wearing khakis and a polo shirt like he was heading to a country club instead of a farmer's market. "Everything all right here?" Sheldon Fairmont asked, his arm sliding possessively around Nadine's shoulders. "Everything's fine, Sheldon," I said, not taking my eyes off Nadine. "Just two old friends catching up." Sheldon looked me up and down like he was appraising a used car with too many miles. His grip on Nadine's shoulder tightened, and I could see him sizing me up, probably wondering if the rough-looking trucker was going to cause a scene in front of all these nice market folks. "Les, this is Sheldon," Nadine said, her voice shaky. "Sheldon, this is Les." Her what? Her ex-husband? The man she'd thrown away like yesterday's newspaper? I noticed she couldn't quite get the words out. "I've heard about you," Sheldon said with that fake politeness rich folks use when they're trying to show how civilized they are. "Truck driver, right?" "Owner-operator," I corrected, even though it wasn't technically true anymore. "And you're the insurance man who likes other people's wives." Nadine gasped. "Les, please don't." "Don't what?" I asked, my voice rising despite my better judgment. "Don't mention the obvious. Don't talk about how you were sleeping with this guy while you were still married to me." Several people at nearby stands turned to look. Sheldon's face went red, and he stepped forward like he was going to do something about it. I straightened up to my full 6'2" and let him see exactly how much road work and manual labor had built into my shoulders. "You need to walk away," Sheldon said quietly, trying to sound threatening. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "Or what? You'll sick your lawyers on me? File a restraining order? I got news for you, pal. I'm not the one who broke up a marriage." Little Daryl was looking between us with wide eyes, probably picking up on the tension, even if he didn't understand it. That sobered me up fast. Whatever beef I had with these two, the kid didn't deserve to see grown men acting like fools. "You're scaring him," Nadine said, moving to shield Daryl with her body. She was right, and it made me feel lower than a snake's belly. I took a step back, shoving my hands in my pockets to keep them from shaking with anger. "I'm not here to cause trouble," I said, looking directly at her. "But seeing you here with him." I gestured toward the boy. "That kid's got my eyes, Nadine. You know it, and I know it." Her face went white as fresh cotton. Sheldon frowned, looking between us like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "What's he talking about?" Sheldon asked. But Nadine was already backing away, pushing the stroller toward the parking lot like the devil himself was chasing her. "Nadine!" I called out, but she didn't stop. I watched them disappear into the crowd, my mind racing with questions that had been buried for 3 years. That boy looked like me, moved like me, had my stubborn chin and my curious eyes. What if Daryl wasn't Sheldon's son at all? I couldn't get that kid's face out of my head. Drove the rest of the day like I was hauling nitroglycerin, my mind churning over every detail from that farmer's market encounter. The way little Daryl had looked at me, curious and unafraid. The way Nadine's face had gone pale when I mentioned his eyes. The way Sheldon had looked confused, like he was hearing something for the first time. By evening, I was parked at a truck stop outside Bakersfield, staring at my phone like it might explode. I'd found Nadine's number, still had it memorized after all these years, though I deleted it from my contacts the day the divorce was final. My thumb hovered over the dial button for the better part of an hour. Finally, I worked up the nerve to send a text. "We need to talk." "About Daryl." The response came back faster than I expected. There's nothing to talk about. But there was. I could feel in my bones the same instinct that told me when a load was shifting wrong or when weather was turning bad on the highway. Something wasn't right about this whole situation. I tried calling. She didn't answer. Tried again an hour later. Straight to voicemail. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I drove to our old neighborhood. The house looked different, smaller somehow. Nadine's flower garden was gone, replaced with some fancy landscaping that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Sheldon's BMW sat in the driveway like a statement of ownership. I parked across the street and waited. Didn't know what I was waiting for exactly, but sometimes a man's got to trust his gut, even when his brain is telling him he's being a fool. Around 10 o'clock, Nadine came out with Daryl. She was loading him into a car seat when she spotted my truck. Even from 50 yards away, I could see her shoulders tense up. She walked over, leaving the boy in the car, and tapped on my window. "What do you want, Les?" she asked when I rolled it down. "The truth," I said simply. "When exactly was Daryl born?" She looked away, which told me everything I needed to know. "That's none of your business anymore. If he's my son, it sure as hell is my business." "He's not," she said, but her voice wavered like a bad transmission. "Then why won't you look me in the eye when you say it?" For a moment, something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or fear. Then the walls went back up. "Stay away from us, Les. I mean it. You'll only make things worse." She walked back to her car, but before she got in, she turned around one more time. "Some things are better left buried," she said. But I've been a trucker long enough to know that the only things people want to keep buried are the things that matter most. 3 days after the farmer's market incident, I was loading cargo in Phoenix when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. All it said was, "Check your mail when you get home. We need to talk." And I finished that haul in record time, driving straight through to Tulsa like the devil was chasing me. My mailbox had the usual junk, bills, advertisements, and a plain white envelope with my name written in Nadine's familiar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a photo. The photo showed Daryl sitting in a sandbox, building something with blocks. He was grinning at the camera, and looking at that smile was like staring at my own baby pictures. But it was the letter that knocked the wind out of me. "Les," it began, "I should have told you this 3 years ago, but I was scared and selfish and thought I was protecting everyone. Daryl is your son. I was already 3 months pregnant when I left, and I knew there was a chance he wasn't Sheldon's. But Sheldon wanted a family so badly, and I wanted the security he could provide. I convinced myself it didn't matter who the biological father was. But it does matter. Daryl asks questions about why he doesn't look like his daddy. He's smart, Les. Too smart. And lately, Sheldon's been drinking more, staying out late, talking about starting fresh somewhere new. He got passed over for a promotion last month, and he's been different ever since. Angry. Sometimes I catch him looking at Daryl like he's seeing a stranger. I'm scared, Les. Not just for me, but for our son. Sheldon's been talking about moving to California, getting a clean slate. He doesn't know I'm writing this, and if he finds out, the letter ended there, like she'd been interrupted. My hand was shaking so hard I had to read it twice to make sure I understood what she was saying. My son. Daryl was my son, and some insurance salesman who was probably going through a midlife crisis had been raising him while I'd been driving empty highways, thinking I'd lost everything. I grabbed my phone and called her immediately. It went straight to voicemail. "Nadine, it's Les. I got your letter. We need to meet, and we need to meet now. If you're in danger, if Daryl's in danger, then we figure this out together. Call me back." I tried 3 more times over the next hour. Nothing. That's when I started to worry that maybe I was already too late. I drove to their house, but the driveway was empty. Neighbors said they'd seen Sheldon loading suitcases into his BMW that morning. Nobody knew where they'd gone. My son was out there somewhere with a man who was coming apart at the seams, and I had no idea how to find them. But I'd tear this whole country apart if I had to. I didn't sleep for 3 days. Called in sick to my dispatch company, which I couldn't afford to do, but some things are more important than a paycheck. I spent every waking hour trying to track down where Sheldon might have taken my family. Started with his work. Drove to his insurance office and sweet-talked the receptionist into telling me he'd requested vacation time for a family emergency. She couldn't tell me where they'd gone, but she mentioned he'd been acting strange lately, taking phone calls in private, and seemed stressed about something. Next, I tried Nadine's sister in Dallas. Lisa had never liked me much, but she liked Sheldon even less. That pompous jerk showed up here yesterday morning with Nadine and the baby, Lisa told me over coffee at her kitchen table. Nadine looked scared, Les. Really scared. Wouldn't hardly talk to me. Kept looking over her shoulder like someone was watching. Did she say where they were going? Sheldon did all the talking. Said they were taking a little vacation to work through some family issues. But here's the thing. Nadine slipped me a note when he wasn't looking. Lisa pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from her purse. In Nadine's handwriting, it said, Golden Hills Resort, outside Flagstaff. Help me. I was back on the road within an hour, pushing my old pickup harder than I had any right to. The Golden Hills Resort turned out to be one of those fancy spa places where rich folks go to find themselves and spend money they don't need to spend. I parked in the lot and walked into the lobby like I belonged there, even though my work boots and faded jeans stood out like a sore thumb among all the yoga pants and designer polo shirts. I'm looking for the Fairmont party, I told the desk clerk. Sheldon Fairmont, wife, and their little boy. The woman behind the counter gave me a look that suggested I might be trouble. Are you family? Close family friend. I lied smoothly. Supposed to meet them for dinner. She clicked on her computer for a moment. I'm sorry, but the Fairmont party checked out this morning. They changed their reservation last minute. My heart sank. Did they say where they were going? I'm not supposed to give out guest information, but... She leaned closer and lowered her voice. The woman seemed upset when they left. The man was rushing them out like they were late for something important. It didn't sit right with me. Did you hear anything? Anything at all about where they might be headed? She glanced around to make sure no one was listening. I heard him on the phone in the lobby, talking about flights to San Diego. Something about a job opportunity that couldn't wait. San Diego. That was a big city with a lot of places to hide. But it was something. I thanked her and headed back to my truck. As I was pulling out of the parking lot, my phone rang. Unknown number. Les. It was Nadine, and she sounded terrified. I can only talk for a minute. We're at the airport. Sheldon's taking us to California. He found out about the letter I sent you. He's not the same person anymore, Les. I think he's having some kind of breakdown. Which airport? I asked, already turning toward the interstate. Phoenix Sky Harbor. But Les, he's talking about disappearing completely. New names, new life. He says if I try to leave him, he'll make sure I never see Daryl again. The line went dead. I made it to Phoenix Sky Harbor in 2 hours, breaking every speed limit between Flagstaff and the city. My old pickup's engine was screaming, but I didn't care. All that mattered was getting to my son before Sheldon could disappear with him forever. The airport was chaos, thousands of people moving in every direction, announcements echoing off the walls, the smell of jet fuel and fast food hanging in the air. I checked every departure board I could find, looking for flights to San Diego or anywhere in California. Then I saw them. Sheldon was standing near gate B-15, holding Daryl while talking angrily into his phone. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept scanning the crowd like he expected trouble. Nadine sat in a nearby chair, looking small and defeated, clutching a diaper bag like it was her lifeline. My son, and it felt good to finally think those words, was squirming in Sheldon's arms, clearly unhappy about being held so tightly. Every instinct I had told me to charge over there and take him, but I forced myself to think like a trucker planning a difficult route. Sometimes the direct path isn't the smart path. I approached slowly, keeping other travelers between me and them, until I was close enough to hear Sheldon's phone conversation. No, I understand the risks, he was saying, his voice strained. But we need to disappear for a while. New identities, new life. I'll transfer the remaining funds once we're settled. New identities. That confirmed my worst fears. He wasn't just running from his problems. He was planning to erase my son's entire history. I stepped out from behind a pillar. Going somewhere, Sheldon. He spun around, nearly dropping Daryl in the process. The color drained from his face like someone had pulled a plug. Les. Nadine gasped, standing up so fast she knocked over her purse. Daddy, Daryl said, reaching toward me with both arms. The word hit me like a freight train. Daddy. He'd call me Daddy, not Sheldon. Somehow, this little boy knew who I really was. You need to leave, Sheldon said, backing toward the gate counter. This is harassment. Harassment? I laughed, stepping closer. I'm trying to save my son from a man who's clearly lost his mind. He's not your son, Sheldon snapped, but his voice was shaking. Then why is he calling me Daddy? I asked, looking directly at Nadine. Why does he have my eyes, my chin, my stubborn streak? And why are you running away with stolen money? Sheldon's face went white. How did you dash? Know about the embezzlement. Small town, Sheldon. People talk. And when a man starts buying one-way tickets to countries without extradition treaties, it tends to raise questions. Daryl was getting fussier, reaching for me more insistently. One down. One truck man. Give me my son, I said quietly, but with enough steel in my voice to make it clear I wasn't asking. Never, Sheldon said, backing further away. That's when airport security showed up. Is there a problem here? The security officer asked, looking between me and Sheldon. This man is harassing my family, Sheldon said quickly. He's my ex-wife's former husband, and he's been stalking us. I started to argue, but Nadine surprised everyone by standing up and speaking clearly. Officer, this man is my son's biological father, she said, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in years. And the man holding him has been embezzling money from his company. I have proof. She reached in her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. Financial documents, bank statements, everything showing how he's been stealing client funds to pay for his gambling debts. Sheldon's face went from white to red. You went through my files. I went through our files, Nadine corrected. When you started talking about running away to Mexico, I got suspicious. I found the offshore accounts, the forged signatures, all of it. The security officer was already calling for backup. Within minutes, we were surrounded by airport police and what looked like federal agents. Sheldon Fairmont, one of the agents asked, FBI, you're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and conspiracy to flee prosecution. As they handcuffed him, Sheldon finally let me take Daryl. The moment my son was in my arms, something inside me that had been broken for 3 years suddenly felt whole again. Da-da, Daryl said, patting my face with his little hands. That's right, buddy, I whispered, my voice rough with emotion. Daddy's here. An hour later, we were in an interview room at the FBI field office. Nadine had turned over everything she collected on Sheldon's crimes, and the agents were building their case. But they needed one more thing from me. Mr. Carmichael, Agent Johnson said, we need to establish paternity for the custody situation. Are you willing to take a DNA test? Absolutely, I said without hesitation. It's not necessary, Nadine said quietly. I'll sign an affidavit. Daryl is Les's son. I should have told the truth from the beginning. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I was scared, Les. Scared of being alone. Scared of not being able to provide for him. Sheldon offered security, stability. I thought I was doing the right thing. You were protecting our son, I said. I understand that. But from now on, we do this together. No more lies. No more running. Daryl had fallen asleep in my arms, his little fist clutching my shirt. Looking down at him, I made a silent promise that I'd never let anyone take him away from me again. So what happens now? Nadine asked. Now we go home, I said. All of us. And we figure out how to be a family again. The agent handed me a business card. Mr. Carmichael, given the circumstances of Mr. Fairmont's arrest, I don't think you'll have any legal issues regarding custody. But you should probably talk to a lawyer just to be safe. I nodded, still watching my son sleep. After 3 years of empty highways and lonely truck stops, I finally had something worth fighting for again. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone take it away. 6 months after the airport incident, my life looked completely different. Sheldon got 15 years in federal prison for embezzlement and attempted kidnapping. The judge wasn't kind to a man who'd stolen money and tried to flee the country with someone else's child. I'd moved back to Oklahoma, closer to Nadine and Daryl. Found work with a regional trucking company that let me do mostly local runs, meaning I was home every night. It wasn't the independence of owning my own rig, but it was steady work that kept me close to my son. Nadine and I weren't getting back together. Too much water under that bridge. But we'd found a way to co-parent that actually worked. She got a job at a bank in Tulsa, and I helped with Daryl 3 days a week plus weekends. Daddy, look. Daryl called out from the sandbox I'd built in my apartment complex's courtyard. He was 3 now, talking in full sentences and getting into everything like kids that age do. That's a mighty fine castle, buddy, I said, settling down beside him with 2 glasses of lemonade. You planning to live there? No, silly, he giggled. Trucks live there. Big trucks like yours. I bought a used Peterbilt the month before. Not as nice as my old one, but it was mine again. Planned to go back to owner-operator status once I'd save enough for a down payment on a small house with a garage where Daryl could help me work on it. Speaking of trucks, I said, your mama told me you want to go on a ride-along next weekend. His eyes went wide. Really? In the big truck? Yep. Just a short haul to Dallas and back. You'll get to see how Daddy makes a living. That evening, after I dropped Daryl back at Nadine's place, She and I sat on her front porch, drinking coffee like we used to when we were young. "He's so happy, Les," she said quietly. "I haven't seen him this excited about anything since, well, ever. He's a good kid. Smart as a whip, too. Gets that from his mama." She smiled at that. "He gets his stubbornness from his daddy. Guilty as charged." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching fireflies dance in the yard. It felt peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced in years. "Les," Nadine said finally, "I need to tell you something. I've been seeing someone. Nothing serious yet, but I wanted you to hear it from me." I felt a small pang of something. Not jealousy exactly, more like the ghost of old feelings. But mostly I felt relief that she was moving forward with her life. "Good for you," I said, and meant it. "Anyone I know? Tom Bradley. He teaches at Daryl's preschool. He's a good man, Les. Patient with kids, honest, stable. Sounds like exactly what you need. What about you? Any prospects?" I laughed. "Right now, I'm focused on being a dad and getting my business back on track. Romance can wait." But as I drove home that night, I found myself thinking that maybe, someday, there might be room in my life for someone special. Someone who understood that Daryl would always come first, but who might want to be part of the family we were building. For now, though, I had everything I needed. 2 years later, I was standing in the yard of my new house, watching Daryl help me wash my truck. He was 5 now, all elbows and knees and endless questions about how everything worked. "Daddy, why does soap make bubbles?" he asked, more interested in playing with the suds than actually cleaning anything. "Something about surface tension," I said, spraying down the wheels. "Ask me again when you're older, and I'll explain it better." The house wasn't much, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a 2-car garage that I converted into a workshop. But it was ours, mine and Daryl's weekend place, where we built model trucks and worked on engines and talked about everything and nothing. Nadine had married Tom the previous spring, and Daryl was thriving with a stable home environment and 2 sets of parents who actually got along. Tom was a decent guy who never tried to replace me in Daryl's life, just added to it. "Dad," Daryl called out. He graduated from daddy to dad recently, which made me proud and a little sad at the same time. "Miss Sarah's here." I looked up to see Sarah Martinez walking up the driveway. Not Agent Martinez anymore. She'd left the FBI the year before to start her own private investigation firm. We'd been dating for 8 months now, and she understood the demands of my life in a way that amazed me. "Hey there, handsome," she said, giving me a quick kiss before turning to Daryl. "And hey there, little handsome. How's the truck washing going?" "We're making it super clean," Daryl announced. "Want to help?" "Absolutely. Can't have dirty trucks around here." I watched them work together, Sarah patiently answering Daryl's endless questions while he helped her wash the bumper. She was good with him, not trying too hard, just treating him like the smart, curious kid he was. Later that evening, after Daryl had gone to bed, Sarah and I sat on the back porch with beer and the comfortable silence of people who'd found something real together. "Got some news today," she said casually. "Good news or bad news. Depends on how you look at it. Sheldon Fairmont died in prison. Heart attack." I felt a complex mix of emotions about that. Relief that he could never threaten my family again, but also something like pity for a man who'd thrown his life away over money and pride. "How do you feel about it?" Sarah asked. "Honestly, I feel free. Like the last chapter of that part of my life is finally closed." She nodded. "And now?" I looked around at the life I'd built. The house, the workshop, the sound of my son sleeping safely upstairs, and the woman beside me who'd chosen to be part of it all. "Now we write new chapters," I said. "Better ones." "Speaking of new chapters," Sarah said, reaching into her pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. "I know this is usually the man's job, but I'm not a traditional kind of woman." My heart stopped. "Sarah, Les Carmichael," she said, opening the box to reveal a simple gold band. "Will you marry me?" I looked at the ring, then at her face, then thought about Daryl upstairs and the life we could all build together. "Yes," I said, pulling her close. "Absolutely yes. Sometimes the road takes you places you never expected to go. Sometimes you lose everything and find out what really matters. And sometimes, if you're lucky and you don't give up, you get a second chance at happiness. I take it."